Okay. Mr. Cave.
Yes.
Rashad Cave. What's up, man?
Oh man, great.
Stay on this side. I think we good. All right. So the idea behind this discussion and whatever other ones I can get to happen between now and election time is to educate laypersons like myself with the political process here in the city. So we're trying to get people to understand who we're voting for, and not just who we're voting for, but what the position is. So that's the framework of this conversation. After we get through a lot of the questions that I sent over to you, we can, if you got some stump speech stuff you want to do, you can do that then. If you want to bash Trump or Hillary Clinton or whatever, you can do all that then. But like first, let's do the education piece.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, who is Rashad Cave? Like, where you come from?
Perfect. So, just born and raised in South Park, Crestmont Park. We used to call it Dead End, because MLK Dead End, DEA Dead End, and born and raised there. Went to Kiowa Elementary. My mom was a school teacher. Left the area, went to Welsh Middle School, and then came right back to the neighborhood and graduated from Sterling High School, where I graduated in class of 2001. A lot of times people ask me not only who I am, but why am I running? It's all kind of tied together. My father has been the Civic Club president for well over now, I think like 34, 35 years, knocking on that door. When I was a kid, we didn't have cable. I don't know, did you have cable? We didn't have cable. Yeah, we didn't have cable. So for us, it was just channel 8 TV, but so for me, I was always an active kid. I always wanted to get out. And here I am. I'm at home, and the only person that was leaving was my father. And he wasn't leaving to go into a bar. He wasn't leaving hanging out with guys, which nothing's wrong with that. He was leaving going to community meetings, whether that was Shape Community Meeting, where he was a board member at one time, whether that was a coalition meeting, neighborhood meetings, or just a civic club meeting. And so that turned in as a kid for me going to a meeting, civic club meeting, which at the time might have been only 5 or 6 people from Crestmont Park, to now being 36 years old and being there and seeing as over 50, but you being an assistant vice president, and seeing how it grows truly molded me into who I am right now, which is a person that cares about the community and has lived my life centered around wanting to help people and help people in the community, and just really see the better side of what the city of Houston, District D could be, and to imagine it even bigger than what it is right now.
Okay. Cool. So, I guess to get into it, what position are you running for? And tell us a little bit about like the rules and responsibilities what someone in that seat would do, what type of seat stuff that they oversee.
Yeah, no, so that's big. First I want to just talk about voting, right, and then tie it in because voting is extremely important. A lot of times when we talk about voting, we just talk about elections and mostly the federal government, i.e. the president. So your average person that you try to have a educational conversation about politics is not really big into it, really only can begin and end with a conversation of presidential.
Right.
But a lot of people don't understand that your local politics is really the heart of the success of your quality of life. And those are your first responders. Those are your first political figures that actually you get to call or get to call upon when you need help. With that being said, I'm running for City Council District D. Council is consumed of 16 members, right? So you have 5 at-large members. First you have the mayor. Then you have 5 at-large members, which go from number 1 through 5 as far as their representation. Then you have district council members, which goes from A all the way to the last one being added, which was K. And each district member is represented in a certain area, or represents a certain area. And the area that I represent is District D, or that I will be representing is District D, which is an area that, of course, again, we're born and raised in, and I live and still live at the end of that district. The district is a pretty big district. The district borders goes all the way to the Beltway. It falls along 288. It hits I-45 behind TSU, U of H, a little bit of the Midtown area, but TSU, U of H. comes back around Macau area, minus some zigzags, and goes all the way to the Beltway. But it's almost kind of like an L shape, because that Beltway along that feeder is District D as well. So we go into Gulf Meadows, Skyscraper, all the way into Sagemont, which is that last community that touches Gulf Gate. And
45 in the Beltway.
Right,
No,
right. So, and that's an important conversation, because a lot of times when you hear people talk about the district, they only talk about the core, which is still pretty much same side, South Park and Third Ward, but the district is actually bigger than that, and it's important to make sure you have a council member that represents it and understands every part of this district.
Yeah, man. Those lines aren't intuitive.
No,
really drawn.
Absolutely.
So people may hear about the issue of District D and think Sunnyside and Third Ward or South Park, but there's also Scarsdale.
Right.
It's also it's a little bit of what's that? Going up in Midtown.
No, absolutely.
Close in the second word.
Museum district, which is
right.
Some will say Old Third Ward, but museum district area.
Right.
Well. So yeah, no, it's absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what does that?
What's
the function of the road?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as a council member,
what would I call you for? And what do you know? If you wind up in a seat, what would you be doing?
Right.
What was that?
So roughly, your business of a council member is usually on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, right? So your business looks like basically coming in on Monday and getting the agenda that the mayor sends down on what are some of the issues and some of the topics and some of the things that you possibly be voting on. From there, Tuesday is the general session, right, where you have constituents come in, and that's my opportunity as a council member, but as a council member that has a vote along that horseshoe to hear what are the constituent issues across the city of Houston. And then on Wednesday is the business, right? So some of the stuff that you've looked over, you read over, that you received on Monday, some of the things that are going to be called for council to vote on, you're to be there, you're to probe, ask questions, really push if need be. If not, definitely make sure that your representation of your district is there to vote on some of the key issues, whether that's funding issues, the issuing of contracts, or just ordinance issues, right, that you have the opportunity to vote on. And then for the most part, Thursday, every day really, Monday through Sunday, is your core responsibility. And I want people to really understand that your core day-to-day responsibility as a district council member is to be responsive to your district, and mainly addressing constituent issues. Okay. So what are constituent issues? Constituent issues are your day-to-day issues, right? Like your heavy trash, your illegal dumping, your dangerous buildings, your weeded lots, your heavy trash violations, infrastructure issues, right? Like sidewalk issues. Like these are all day-to-day issues that constituents deal with. That is my responsibility to listen and attempt to address as best as possible. And so that's the day-to-day. Over 70% of your calls as a council member are constituent issues. That the communities have, that they're looking for their council member to either represent and speak on or address inside the city of Houston.
Okay. Now that being said, what are some of so as a person who lives here in the city of Houston and a person who lives in America, we have representative democracy, and we have a pseudo-free market capitalist economic system. So living with those, they intertwine, and money goes into politics, and we get flooded with ads, and it's a lot of hot button issues when it's election time, but we don't hear much about it when it's not. So just could you talk about some of the issues that you see with District D, things that come up when it's not election time, and even some of the hot button stuff, but like some of the regular issues that you have to deal with, and that are some of the immediate ones and some of the long term ones.
No, absolutely.
If we can frame it that way.
Yeah. Some of the immediate issues that we're dealing with right now is illegal dumping. 311, which is a system that we use in the city of Houston to kind of address some of our issues, states that in our area we get more calls for illegal dumping than any other call or any other issue. So with that, we need to make sure that we have a strategic plan to clean it up, but also to work at some hardcore but out of the box ways on trying to actually catch the criminals at hand.
I don't mean, I know it's your time to talk.
No, but
word on the street is there's a $5,000 reward if you turn somebody in and they get convicted of dumping. Like if you give evidence to help them get convicted.
Now, that's
like
big.
To TIBS.
That's big. That's big.
Now, we all hate dumping.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. And I'll be honest, I haven't heard of that, but I can see that being actually the case.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been talking to some of the board members of Crime Stoppers is working with them again on how can we use Crime Stoppers, which we used to use very aggressively almost a decade ago to incriminate some of these issues. Because really, illegal dumping is going to be an issue that the community can help assist faster than a police officer can catch the person in the truck illegally dumped. Right. Some of the issues and the medium range issues is creating some ordinances that can help keep our community clean. Because I really think that even though I have other platforms, if we can keep our community clean and rid of some of the decay, some of the illegal dumping, we really can have the other things that we're looking for come into fruition. Is creating new ordinances. And there's one particular ordinance that I really want to push on, which is a tire ordinance. Currently, right now, Laredo, Texas has an ordinance that I wanted to copy. So right now in the city of Houston, if you go to a mom and pop tire shop, you got two options. You pay the disposal fee, which is $3 to $5 if that tire is ruined, to have them dispose of it properly, or you can take that tire with you home for free. Okay, you follow me?
Okay.
What Laredo, Texas does is you could either pay the $3 to $5 to dispose of that tire, or you can pay a deposit fee to take that tire.
Okay.
So what's the first thing that comes in your brain? Like, why would you pay a deposit fee, right?
Right.
Well, that's the point. The deposit fee is actually to encourage you to pay the disposal fee, right? Now, the deposit fee, maybe you want to take that tire home, and you might actually want to keep it because you might want to use it for your garden. You might want to, use it to build Tommy a swing in the back of your house, right?
Right.
And so that's your prerogative. And so if you choose to do so, you can do that. Pay the $10 and you take the tire with you. But what that is to encourage people to do is to pay the disposal fee.
Right.
Because if you pay the disposal fee, then you would have less people paying the $10. Because who wants to pay $10 to take your tire with you, right? And so what they saw within a 4-year period in time is now seeing tires not in their ditches, tires not in there in illegal dumping issues, and now they're having a system where now it's holding the companies accountable as well as the city is getting clean.
You know where the tires are going for the most part.
And now as a city, I can hold the tire shop accountable. If you're purchasing 150 tires, I should see 135, 140 tires excuse me, that you're disposing of. Because now I can hold you accountable because most people should be paying the disposal fee versus deposit. Right. The long-term thing is really making sure that we can fight gentrification. I talk about this quite a bit. There's a difference between revitalization and gentrification. Revitalization is making sure that we can give the community assets and resources that it needs to grow without identifying or leaving out a certain economic group. Gentrification basically creates a development of a community, but isolates a certain group that possibly cannot afford to live in those surroundings. Okay. And so the long-term plan that won't be overnight, but that for me I would be fighting for is to say, how can we make sure, in some cases Third Ward might be a little bit too out of that already because it's actually gentrifying. There are certain issues and certain people in certain places in our community right now that's already too high for some of our lower income people to live in. But how can we create a formula to ensure that we can have all constituents of all different economic backgrounds live in the same community? And I think if you can create that, which is going to take time, working to possibly fight for some developers not to create certain departments and structures of housing in certain areas, or fight for them to lobby for them to develop certain things that can incorporate maybe a lower income area. But that gentrification and revitalization is definitely a long conversation that would take all day to possibly discuss, but that's the long-term plan that I would like to fight to make sure that we cannot eliminate any group of people, regardless of economic background, from any place in the city of Houston, but particularly District D.
Okay. So, looking at near-term and long-term goals and desires, things you want to accomplish, as far as the priorities that you stated. How do you feel about Houston in its place? And it's a global city. We're a global city. When we were younger, it was global economically, but like now it has a cultural place and there's like leadership, culture-wise, and so on the social side as well. Absolutely. So we've become a much more cosmopolitan city. With the one, how long would you, if you were to be elected, how long would you be, what are the terms? But like thinking about the city, it's like the city will be 200 years old in about 16, 17 years. Yeah. So just a little bit about what do you think, how do you see Houston fitting into that larger context?
That's big. Well, as of the last major city elections, the voters chose to go from a 3-term to a 2-term. So at first we had 3 terms, each term 2 years. Now we have 2 terms, each term 4 years. Okay. So when I get elected, come this year, I'll be able to start serving in January, and that will start my first term, which will give me an eligibility of possibly a second term 4 years down the line for council, strictly for council. So once you're in that seat, of course I could run for other stuff, but that's not even in the trajectory for me because I really want to focus on that. But just to answer your question, overall, this is a very diverse city. It is a very diverse city. But even with a diverse city, there's still gaps. Right. And so right now, if you look at the statistics, we have close to about 28% of Hispanic population in our district, but there's no representation of that. And it's hard to even visualize that, right? And so one of the things that I've even petitioned on is that once I become elected, I'm going to have one of the first bilingual speaking staff members in my office. Because it's important to have representation, right? If we're growing as a culturally diverse community, particularly in our district, we need to see that representation in the office. Right. In addition to that, though, not only are we diverse in culture, but we're diverse in age. The average age of the city of Houston is 33. That's the median age of the city of Houston. Okay. But there's gaps because the average age that we have in city council is 54. And the average voting age in District D is almost 64 years or higher. Wow. So as we talk about gaps, right, there's also ageism in representation. And so my community and my philosophy that I'm really pushing is elect me so that I can bridge the gap between an older generation that in some cases are looking for a glimpse of a community that they once loved, right? That we as a younger kids were able to see glimpses of, right? But yet a younger generation that lives in our community but is not a part of the community, right? They're disassociated, and I don't even think that they understand how to become a part of a community that in some cases they feel like is not welcoming for them, right? And there's no examples of showing why or how they can even come and their voices be heard. And so that's really a big issue. And so yes, representation of culture needs to be, of course, addressed, but ageism as far as representation needs to be addressed as well. And those are all some of the things that my campaign and me running is addressing. But hopefully as I get into the seat, I can continue to try to find the gaps and address as well.
Okay. All right, appreciate you, man. Anything else that we hadn't talked about, something you think the voters should know about, run the dates down, but like just anything that's coming to mind.
Well, no, the biggest thing is, number one, I just want to thank you for taking your time out. You've been truly a community leader in your community, and of course, and I can vouch for that. Being in the same community, born and raised, just like you and your family have. One of the things that makes me different, and I just want everybody to understand this, is that I started off in the Civic Club. And I want people to understand it, and that's so important because I say this on the spill, but how can you ask to represent a district if you haven't even taken the time to represent your community first? Right. And I think that it's important not only for that to be known as far as all the other candidates that are running, for anybody that's out there that's in District D that's voting, but it's also important to understand though that how I would think once being in office, right? And I can understand both sides, right? By me working in the community and being in the community as far as association, I can understand how it feels to be sitting in a seat and looking for the city for resources, right? At the same time, too, by my day job working for the city of Houston, I understand how it is to want to deploy resources but have limited of them, right? And so, you know, how do you fit that in the middle? And I think that I fit the equation for understanding both sides and knowing that not only will I not leave any civic club or any organization behind, because I know how that feels as well, but I understand the issues and I understand how to create a happy medium between both sides to ensure that representation is evenly displayed and that every voice is heard. I don't plan on coming in and doing the magic one and fixing everything, right? I think that's very important. We have been preaching in our campaign under promise and over deliver, right? But what you will see in me is somebody that's active, somebody that will be responsive, somebody that will show up to your civic club meeting, somebody that will engage you at your church, somebody that will listen to your issues. And even if their issues are something that I can't address at that current time or I can't fix, automatically you will have, or you will at least get a response from my department or from my team stating an update on what's going on with your case and what are some of the things that we're waiting on in order to try to fix it. So other than that, I just appreciate you and I appreciate the listeners. October the 21st, early voting starts.
Okay.
Make sure that you check your polling because, of course, early voting, you can always vote everywhere, but on election day, November the 5th, you're capable of voting anywhere as well, whether you work downtown or you actually live in the comfort of your home and want to vote near you.
No, by anywhere, you mean at any of the registered polling places?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, any of the registered polling places.
Okay.
Absolutely. And make sure that you also too come out possibly in December, right? We have a very hot mayoral race that's coming out, and that's going to be a hot button. And we're and in District D, because there's 15 candidates running, there could be a runoff. And with that runoff, we would definitely need your support to come back in December. So we just ask for you all to stay engaged, listen to what's going on, and make sure that as you do your homework about the candidates, i.e. Rashad Cave, that you definitely come out and you vote and be responsive to the issues.
What you said? You brought the runoff up. So we have an election right now in November. There are going to be runoffs.
Yeah.
And then in the spring there's another election, I believe. Primaries, I think. It's primaries. So yeah, 2020, the big election. Can you say a little bit about, I don't know, I feel that it's terribly important that people show up and vote for every election that touches the dirt that they live on.
Absolutely.
So it's already baked into the cake. People already understand that runoff voter, the numbers of people who are going to vote in the runoff will be much smaller than people
Absolutely.
who vote in the mayoral.
Statistically, it happens. Yeah.
And the people who vote in the mayoral is going to be much smaller than the people who vote in the presidential. And you stated at the beginning about how local is what really affects your quality of life. Just a little bit about that. I mean, I'm going to beat that drum on social media and everywhere else, but like.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, right now, the federal government or the presidential race is always polarized, right? There's not a channel or a news channel that you can't watch that something is said about the federal government or i.e. our president, right? And so I think that normally when you can talk, it's important that people are educated, right? And look at the education of who's the candidates, who you're pushing for your presidential, as well as go down to your state, right? We have some very important state races that are coming out next year, of course. You know that in Texas the session is every other year, but the terms is only for 2 years. So you're going to have some state reps and state senators that are going to come up and that's going to need your support, which again affects the ground that you live on, as well as making sure that you have established a platform for your city government, right? To support all the things that you plan on voting for next year. There's some big races with county district attorney. I mean, there's some big races that are coming out and that you have to make sure that you're engaged. And so just don't look, presidential race is extremely important, right? Because that's where we see the trickle down effect. So that's just as important though as your district council race, right? Your state senator is just as important as who's your state representative, right? And so these are things that we need to make sure that we educate on. And I think whoever is in office come January from the city needs to be educating as well. Right? Because there's a lot of issues that people come to constituents come to a council member that really is affected by the state. And so, hey, you know, making sure that you have that representation that can be seamless is important. And definitely you'll get that from me come January as your new council member for District B.
Appreciate it, Rashad.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
No problem.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah.
You raise the money, like what's
Absolutely,
the deal?
absolutely. Man, go to my website. It's Cave, the number 4, districtd.com.
Should look like that.
The number 4, districtd.com. Go to my website, look up my information. We just got endorsed by the Houston Chronicle on Thursday. A lot of great things that are happening. If you have any questions or concerns, my email is on there. You can get in contact with me and reach out to me. But also, too, check out my issues. And if you have some ideas on or some things that you would like to see, let me know that as well, because I want to be a transparent council member, one that still doesn't feel like I know everything, but that is reachable or approachable from constituents, and that you can always come to me with your issues, your concerns, and your ideas so that we can move District B forward.
Appreciate it, bro.
Thank you again.
Yes, sir.
All right.